What happens to different states of matter whenever you heat them up and cool them down? Well, let's take water. Let's look at water. What happens to water whenever you, let's take water in a liquid state. What happens to liquid water whenever you cool it down? Well, when you cool it down, what happens to water is that it starts to freeze. Well, whenever you get past its freezing point, which is 32 degrees Fahrenheit and 0 degrees Celsius, it starts to freeze. What happens to water whenever it freezes? Well, water gets stuck, but it also expands. The water molecules stop moving and they stay still. That's why it's frozen, because they stop moving. But what also happens to water is that whenever you cool it down, it expands. It expands whenever you cool it down. And this is different from other liquids and other solids where they contract whenever you cool them down. Whenever you cool down other liquids, they start to contract and they get closer together. And this is pretty cool for water, because water, since it expands, whenever it's frozen, it makes it less dense than liquid water. And that's why you're able to skate on top of ice during the winter. Because whenever the water freezes, the water on top freezes, it's less dense than the water at the bottom, so it doesn't sink. That's pretty cool. Well, what happens to frozen water whenever we heat it up? Well, it becomes liquid, right? It becomes liquid, which means that the frozen expanded water molecules start to come a little bit closer together and they become more liquid, okay? And this will keep going. Now, water, like I said, whenever it's frozen, it expands. So whenever you unfreeze it, it gets slightly contracted back to being a little bit closer together, the water molecules. But when you keep heating them up, and you keep heating them up and keep making them hotter and hotter, they start to expand and get even more. And that's where you get steam, because they start getting further and further apart. Eventually they break off and they go into the sky and they just keep flying up. That's where you get steam. Now, most objects melt like this. Whenever you freeze them, like water, whenever you heat it up, it melts. But some objects don't just melt, right? Some metals, whenever you heat them up, and you heat them up to high temperatures, they start to emit light, they start to glow. And this is how light bulbs work, actually. Light bulbs have a little filament inside of them, and that filament, whenever you heat it up, that piece of metal, whenever you heat it up, it starts to glow. It starts to glow. Even though this is super hot, you're heating it up really hot. But it doesn't melt, it glows. And it's really cool. So some objects might do certain things. Some materials might do different things whenever you heat them up or cool them down to different temperatures. And that's interesting. Different materials at different physical states, like gas or solid or liquid, can have different responses to temperatures, right? You can have different responses. Not all liquids expand whenever they're frozen, but water does. Why? I don't know. But when you're at home, it's good if you do some experiments, grabbing different liquids and different solids and heating them up and cooling them down. But make sure you have parents with you doing this, or a trusted adult, because I don't want you to get hurt, because that would be bad. And yeah, as always, stay in school till the end.